let's jump into it. So my talk title is called Behind Every AI Feature, There's an A/B Test. Let's start with the quickest of introductions. My name's Leemay Nassery. I work at Spotify, specifically on the homepage, and I'm also the author of Practical A/B Testing. Okay, let's start with a bit of framing, perhaps. Have you ever used ChatGPT? Or perhaps you're a user on a social media platform. Or maybe you've streamed music from Spotify browsing the personalized recommendations presented on the homepage. Regardless of any of those examples, I'm sure you've engaged, or I'm sure you've been exposed to an AI model. All of these examples have two factors in common. First, there's an AI model recommending content or providing responses to the queries. So the latter is obviously in the ChatGPT perspective, but also providing responses to queries can also entail, like when you search for something on Facebook or Spotify, there's an AI model, there's a machine learning model that is returning a response and personalizing it based on your prior history or prior searches, et cetera. So that's one commonality between all of those examples. There's an AI model behind it. Second, all of these AI models were evaluated with an online controlled experiment, an A/B test. So let's talk about A/B testing and a tale of two product development life cycles. There are two types of companies out there. There are companies that are curious about the impact of their decisions and how those decisions are informed by metrics. Oops. For example, in this case, at a company that uses A/B testing, you may start with user research studies, and that user research study could influence product requirements. Those product requirements are defined, and then an engineering team then implements a feature or a change based on those requirements. There may be offline evaluations that come into play, especially if there's an AI model at hand, and then there's an A/B test. The A/B test essentially is when users are exposed to the change or the model, a subset of users, not all of your users, and then based on some certain duration where that's predefined, you do analysis, there are metrics, and then you kind of decide like whether the effect is what you want or if you should go back and revisit how that feature is implemented. But if the success metrics and guardrail metrics do pan out as you expect, then you launch the feature. So that's one type of company. Another type of company doesn't really do that. Another type of company doesn't leverage A/B testing. Leadership defines a new feature, engineering quickly implements it. There's maybe some level of validation internally, and then the feature is launched to everyone. On a long enough timeline, you will be at both types of companies. If you work in tech, I absolutely guarantee that you will be exposed to both software development life cycles. For myself, before I worked at Spotify, I worked at a company called Comcast. At Comcast, we were like my time there. So this was about 6 years ago. We were launching our first A/B tests. So although we were A/B testing, there was a good portion of my career there where we weren't A/B testing. So we were more resembling this type of process. But at some point we did start to A/B test, and it was wonderful. We got insights, we got impact on, we started to understand the impact our features had on our metrics. And then now I'm at Spotify, where we are absolutely practicing this process, which does incorporate A/B testing. So this is all to say, on a long enough timeline, you will be at both types of companies. What should you do if you're already at a company that uses A/B testing? You should run A/B tests. You should take risks, make big swings, experiment, really understand the effect of your ideas, dream big. That's the whole beauty of A/B testing, is you can evaluate small changes, big changes, and really understand the impact. Now, let's say you're at a company that doesn't practice A/B testing. What should you do? Well, you should be armed with the knowledge to incorporate A/B testing into your product development lifecycle. You should try to be a conduit for change, make the change happen, which is exactly what I did at Comcast. This is why I'm so passionate about A/B testing, in that I've been on both axes. I've been at companies that do not practice A/B testing, and I was that person that was pushing to build a very minimal A/B testing platform just to get started. And then I've been at companies that have a very sophisticated A/B testing platform that have different problems. They don't have enough users, or they need more sophisticated strategies to evaluate the change. Um, and both of them are fascinating places to be. If you are at the former, if you are at a place that doesn't practice A/B testing, I would say not all hope is lost. You can absolutely run an A/B test with very minimal infrastructure. And you should also check out my book. My book is a really very much introduction to A/B testing. It's a book for those that are just getting started with their journey. They just kind of need to know the foundational pieces to get started. All right, so what are the benefits of A/B testing? A/B testing is complex, so it is good to know why you should do it. Companies evaluate changes in the scope of an A/B test to gain user insights, product insights, and business insights. This is a trifecta of factors that come into play when making changes to a user-facing product. You want to understand the impact to the user experience. You also want to measure the effect of a feature has on your product usage. So is usage improving on your product? Is it decreasing? Are there metric gains? Are there metric degradations? And then there's business insights. Every company is a business to some extent. And revenue and customer acquisition, all of these things matter. And A/B testing is a way to evaluate if your strategies to increase revenue, for example, are as effective as you may think they are. All right, to continue on with that, benefits of A/B testing: understand the impact of a feature on business, product, and user metrics, build more inclusive products, take more risks responsibly, because if you're crafting or if you're developing a big change on a product and you want to understand the impact of it, you're only releasing it to a subset of users, and that's how you reduce risk. Instead of launching it to everyone, you're launching it to, a portion of your users, and then measuring the impact. And then also another benefit of A/B testing is catching failures earlier. In the scope of an A/B test before it's launched to all your users, you may be able to catch degradations or issues in your system design or some engineering defect before it's exposed to everyone. Another key benefit to A/B testing in relation to AI is understanding, is the juice worth the squeeze? AI is complex. It requires research, infrastructure, scalable engineering systems, offline evaluations. Like, it requires data, training pipelines. There's a lot that goes into building an AI model and having that AI model deployed to production and leveraged by your users. Understanding the impact of all of that complexity is so key. And without measuring that effect, you're not certain the juice is really worth the squeeze. Complexity aside, A/B testing is critical for refining an AI model and ensuring it meets the intended performance expectations. So let's say you have an AI model that's deployed to production that's recommending music, or it's recommending what you see on your Facebook timeline. There's a lot that goes into just that simple sentence of something that recommends something to a user. And if you don't understand the effect of that and the impact of that, that's not good. That's bad. And I think that's irresponsible. And that's why A/B testing can help ensure that your AI practices are doing good for your users and your business and product metrics. All right, let's go into the fundamentals of A/B testing, just so we're all on the same playing field when we talk about A/B testing. So A/B testing is complex. There's a lot that goes into it. You have to define a new feature first, and then define the eligibility criteria. So what type of users are allocated to the experiment? Then you need your metrics, and then there's some level of human validation before you launch your test, because you want to make sure your test is configured correctly. And then you start your test. There's a lot that goes into it. What are the most important design pieces of a well-designed A/B test? Hypothesis. So this is where you clearly state, if I introduce this feature, this is my expectation. I predict this will happen. So for example, if I introduce a new AI model onto my product, then there will be an increase in click-through rate, or there will be an increase in revenue because that recommendations model is recommending things the user can purchase. So that's what your hypothesis, that's your prediction. This is like makes it very clear why you were running this A/B test. Then there's the test and control treatments or variants. These are the two different groups that will get the change, and then the control, which will get the unchanged experience, which you're comparing to. And then you have your metrics, which is how you measure if your hypothesis is indeed true. And then you have duration, sample size, and all of these key statistical attributes that you typically rely on a data science to help you with. A little bit on test and control treatments. Like I said, a test treatment is a subset of users allocated to an experiment that receives a new change or feature. So again, if you're evaluating a model or an AI, an algorithm, those are the users that are going to be exposed to that new model or to the changes made to the model. And the control treatment is the subset of users that receive the unchanged experiment. All right, let's get a little bit into success metrics. Winning or being successful is defined by how you measure what a win is. For new customers, keeping score may be the number of new customers that are, for a new business, keeping score may be the number of new customers that are added to the platform or product. For sports, it's obviously like goals, hits, points, whatever. When your A/B testing has concluded, how you measure success is defined by your success metric. So for example, if you're evaluating an AI model on, let's say on Facebook, engagement with the recommendations that come from that model that are exposed to you on your timeline, like the reactions that you do to a post, could be a way to measure the effect of that model's recommendations. There's also guardrail metrics, which we don't really talk a lot about. Usually you think of success metrics when you think of A/B testing, but guardrail metrics, or also called secondary metrics, are a way to ensure that the change does not have an unintended impact. So you're not necessarily trying to increase your guardrail metrics, but you just want to make sure that you're not degrading it, or you're keeping an eye on the performance, the impact your changes have on the performance on things that matter to your company or your product. So you're not necessarily optimizing on your guardrail metrics, but you are keeping an eye on the impact of that. Okay, so in practice, what is really needed? How do you make it work? To really practice A/B testing at scale within a product engineering organization or within any company, you need process, technology, and culture. A lot of times when we think of A/B testing, we just think of the system, like we think of the platform that enables someone to set up an A/B test, meaning like the UI where you're like, here, these users get this change, these users get the control, and then run it for 2 weeks and then tell me what my metrics are. It's actually a lot more than that. If the process to do what I just said is tough, if it's hard to coordinate a test, teams aren't going to run A/B tests. They're going to bypass that step. So process is very important. It needs to be self-service. It needs to be clear how to set up an experiment. It needs to be clear how to set up a valid experiment, not just any type of experiment. Because if it's not valid, if it's not trustworthy, you're going to be making decisions based on untrustworthy data. Then there's obviously the technology piece, and then finally culture. If a product engineering organization that is interested in learning and evaluating changes, but also understanding the impact of those changes, if they're not interested in learning, then it's unlikely that your A/B testing platform or practices will be adopted. So the culture of there has to be like an experimentation mindset to really gain traction on this methodology. And here's another way to look at it. It's an ideal experimentation culture. There's process, it's seamless, it's easy to run A/B tests. There's a technology, it's reliable. Your systems can reliably produce events and data that allow you to compute your success and guardrail metrics. And then there's a culture. If engineering teams and product managers are actually interested in the impact and less interested on just simply checking a box and shipping that feature to production, then that is the ideal place for experimentation. All right, this trifecta is what makes A/B testing sustainable at any company, especially at a company that wants to innovate and leverage AI. Without process, it'll be chaos. Without technology, it obviously won't be feasible. You won't be able to run an A/B test. And without the right culture, no one's going to want to run an A/B test on the product. All right, we've zoomed past everything. Final takeaways on why it's important to innovate on your experimentation capabilities and leverage A/B testing when you are, building AI models. Theory and offline evaluations can only take you so far. The success of any AI model relies on how well you evaluate the impact of the change on the product. Experimentation can help you understand the effect of the decisions you make. So A/B testing can help you understand the impact your AI model has on user metrics, business metrics, product metrics. So they go hand in hand. Although, in the news or pretty much everywhere, AI is so prevalent, you'll hear it mentioned by everyone. It's rare that you hear A/B testing mentioned alongside of it, but it's a key part, it's a key player into enabling that AI. Companies leverage the A/B testing methodology in one way or another. It's a conduit for innovation, i.e., artificial intelligence, for any product or business. The better your A/B testing practices are, the better you'll be at innovation, strategy, learning. In general, learning more about the experience you're putting in front of your users is important. And how do you learn that? You run A/B tests. You run tests to understand, or you run experiments to understand, like, is my product strategy, is my engineering strategy actually what I think it is? Is it actually improving things? And if you really want to innovate and put more AI in production, you need A/B testing to understand the impact. Innovation and taking big bets on your product strategy is expensive and it's risky. You can improve your experimentation practices so you can de-risk and reduce the cost of innovating. So like I said, like AI is very complex. There's a lot of infrastructure, there's the model itself, there's researchers, there's data scientists, there's core foundational engineering needed to sustainably support AI in a production setting. And that's expensive and it's risky if it does the wrong things. And you want to use A/B testing to make that less expensive, meaning like if it's easy to evaluate changes on your AI model, the more you can innovate. If experimentation can help catch degradations before it's launched to all users, that reduces your risk. So A/B testing and an AI definitely go hand in hand. Thank you. Let's
Someone
see.
said, A/B testing in AI, how can I transfer the skills to another industry that are not fully digitalized, like healthcare?
Oh my gosh, it's such a good question. Um, That's a really good question. So, ironically, I know this is not exactly what they're referring to, but a lot of in my first book, a lot of when I describe a concept, I actually point back to the healthcare industry because these concepts do exist in the healthcare industry, not like how we're saying it, but from like a clinical trials, for example. A clinical trial is similar to an A/B test. The stakes are way higher, and it's way more important versus like an A/B test that is ran like on my phone. But it is very similar concepts. How to leverage A/B testing in software that's written for the healthcare industry. I don't know how to answer that. I have to think about that a little because their development process is a little bit different, I think. Like, I don't think they're doing rapid iterations on
Yeah,
the
that makes sense.
like I think you'd have to be able to dynamically allocate users and then deallocate them from the tests and controls treatment, where I suspect healthcare systems, the software goes,
Yeah.
and then you make updates and then yeah, that's like not an industry I'm super familiar with, but it's a really good question. I'll think about it.
Someone's also said, how can A/B tests, as an author, how can A/B testing benefit authors who are less technical?
Um, so A/B testing, what's interesting is it's a domain that everyone at a company that is building a user-facing product is involved in. So for example, product managers who are typically like not as technical as engineers, they're setting up the A/B test. Um, a How do I say this? Like a person that is maybe has like a simple website that is promoting something that they've built or like a blog. You could leverage A/B testing to somewhat understand like how am I getting once I get traffic to my website, um, are people clicking on things as I expect them to, or if I tweak the framing or the copyright, or if I, play with the imagery, does that increase engagement on my website? Like I think it's something that you can, and just in general, outside of technology, I mean, you could apply A/B testing practices to your life, which sounds insane, but it's not. Like you try something and then you try something similar and then you step back and you evaluate like what was more effective. So I don't think
Yeah,
that answered their question to a T, but it's definitely an answer.
I like the idea of applying it to various aspects of my life, and I'm trying to think of, yeah, I like the idea of
I have
that.
this dream of A/B testing my way through like Paris, where I just try like different variations of croissants.
Yeah,
And then
do
I
you know
like
what?
go ahead.
So I live in France, and someone actually put together a vlog of like all the croissants and the patisseries and that round where I live,
My
and they
dream.
had them then all laid out on a table, and then it was almost just like a review of all of them, and then
That's
they said which one was their favorite.
Yeah, and there was like criteria to like determine which one was the best. That's my dream, is like to like
Yeah,
pull the croissant and be like, this one's fluffier than the other one.
yeah. So that's what they did. They had like four metrics that they gave each of a
Yeah.
score out of five. So it was like fluffiness, butteriness, but also the
Yeah,
crispiness,
crispiness. Yeah.
and then price as well. I think there was one other as well. And then that basically in each of those metrics they gave a score out of five, and then that determined who was the winner.
Yeah, that's my dream. That
Yeah.
person just my dream.
Um, Someone has said you briefly mentioned that some recommendation engines may not be good for users if the effects are not understood. I would like to know how A/B testing and AI are going to be combined in a way which will be beneficial for users. Will it be an A/B test, one with AI and one without, or would it be an experiment that optimizes your hypothesis in a back pro propagination network?
That's a really good question. And they answered it themselves, actually. That's absolutely the case. Um, I've seen so many cases where an A/B test, there's multiple test variants. So the model is not only being tested on a different version of itself, but also like, what if the AI model was excluded? What if it was a simple heuristic? What if it was simple business logic that was being evaluated against the AI model? Um, so that's it. Will it be, so when they said one in an A/B test, one with AI and one without it, that's a total practical use case for A/B testing. Because then it
Yeah.
also showcases like sometimes the one without AI wins. And if or is they're very close. And if they're very close and an AI is so expensive and complex, you might as well go for the simpler solution.
Yeah.
So it's a
Um,
very good question.
the next question is, they said, thanks for the great presentation. Can you provide more details on the difference between a control group and the remainder of users?
It's a really good question. So they're similar. The control group and the remaining users that are not allocated to an experiment are both getting the same user experience. So they're not exposed to the test changes. The only difference is the users in the control group were identified and taken out so that you can compute metrics with. But they are essentially seeing the same thing from a product perspective or from a user perspective. They're both not exposed to changes. They're both just getting the baseline treatment.
How do you do A/B testing if you're dealing with a black box? For example, with ChatGPT, the same prompt often might create different responses. So how could you test different prompts?
Yeah, that's more like that's just more testing ChatGPT from a spot from a personal perspective. I think it's the way I wouldn't really know. I don't have much experience with generative AI. I don't use it as much from a user perspective, and I've not built generative AI models. But how could you test it to different prompts? So let me think about this for a second. How do you do A/B testing if you're dealing with a black box, for example, with ChatGPT? The same prompt often might create different responses. So I guess if the same prompt is creating different responses, so how would you test different prompts? Yeah, I'm not sure. Is this from the perspective of a user using Chat GPT, or is it from the team that's building the model? If it's the team that's building the model, you test it by understanding, like, I guess, engagement with that. Are more questions asked? Are more queries asked after that response is given? And if they're similar to the initial query, that's kind of a sign that the initial response was not great. So you kind of just measure, like, what are the subsequent actions taken, to understand the effectiveness of that specific model version. But yeah, from a user perspective, yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that, but good question.